All right, everyone. Daniel Martin here with EVTUNERS, coming at you from New York after renting a Model Y and driving around New England for the last week. So I really enjoyed it. It's been an awesome trip and really seeing some pretty country. The leaves, as you might be able to see, are in the middle of changing right now. And so that has been good timing. This spot here, it's a supercharger, is not the greatest for the fall foliage, but there are some spots in Vermont, Massachusetts, and upstate New York that have just been incredible. Anyway, so the Model Y was great. It's the first time that I'd driven one. As many of you know, I have a Model 3 that I track in daily, and the Model Y is totally a different beast. So I'm going to take you through the top 5 things that I found that were different from the Model Y compared to dailying the Model 3 that I have track prepped. So let's get into it. Thing number 1 is the ride height. So this is the Model Y that we got, and right away you can see that it's higher than the Model 3, and I didn't really realize by how much. It's not a crazy difference clearance wise. You look at the spec sheet and it's not a crazy difference, but just getting in is a totally different experience for me. Now I'm a little over 6 foot, I'm almost 6'1", so your mileage may vary, but to actually get into the Model Y, pop the door open, and it's really just ducking right in and not having to bend down too much. Now, granted, I do have a lowered Model 3, but even before I lowered it on the coils, it still was significantly, I had to bend over and kind of lean forward to get in. And so this is probably the most notable difference for me is that ride height. I'm going to hop back out, though, and talk about another notable difference. And I almost forgot. I mentioned that it is easier to get into because the Model Y is higher. That does translate into a slightly higher driving position when you're on the road. So if that's something that you're looking for, I think it fits the bill. The next being the quality of the ride. So I had heard people talk about how the Model Y had a stiffer suspension, and I find that to be absolutely true. So the shocks there, I figured, it's probably somewhat similar to the Model 3. No, whatever they do in the valving here, it's definitely a lot stiffer of a daily ride. Now, it didn't bother me. I found it to be perfectly livable, and driving it for the last week. Man, total side note, these rentals, they got these thrashed rims. It just, you hate to see it. But oh well. Anyway, so the design of the suspension is the same as the Model 3. Got the spring perch in the back there, and but clearly the valving is different. Now, I will say though that taking it on a couple dirt roads, I actually thought it performed better with this stiffer suspension than the Model 3 does. So I've taken my 3 on dirt roads, gravel roads, and it clearly is more suitable for the street. And stock for stock, I think the Y was more comfortable on a dirt road than the 3, but the 3 is more comfortable on a street. So there you go. That's kind of, if you're keeping it stock, then that's something to consider if you drive on a lot of dirt roads. Again, though, the actual ride comfort on the street still pretty good. It didn't bother me one bit, and we put quite a few miles on it. The last thing I'll say, if you don't know or are just getting into these cars, there's lots of aftermarket options. If that street, you really want the Y, but you don't want to take it off-road, you really want it to be smoother, there's a ton of options, from like total aftermarket coils like Mountain Pass or something from Unplugged Performance, to a lot cheaper options that it's, no adjustability, but just going to be a lot smoother ride. So if you are interested in that, let me know, or reach out to some of the community vendors out there. There's lots of options that you can investigate. All right, so that was number 1 and number 2, summary, ride height, and the suspension. Let's go to the next one. All right, I'm back in the Y here for thing number 3 that I noticed is the amount of room in the back seat, as well as the head clearance. So if you can see this here, I can sit in the back seat comfortably and I'm not hitting my head. There's plenty of clearance on the side there. And I think for me at least, it feels like a little bit more clearance here in the knee area. So compared to the 3, it definitely has a roomier back seat by a little bit. And if you're a larger person or you have a big family, I think that probably will make a difference for you. On to number 4. All right, so number 4, big differences between the Model 3 and the Model Y. I think that you've probably all seen this from the outside, but let's just take a little bit of a specific look at how the roof is different. So if we look here, there's the driver's roof and in our glass panel, right? Very beautiful. We love to see the outdoors. Now in the 3, there's actually a cross bar here. So the upper window is 2 pieces of glass, but in the Y, it is different. And that goes to accommodate the hatchback, which I'm kind of lumping 2 things in here together, but the hatchback comes down here, and of course there's no trunk. In the 3, the trunk would kind of be at about this level if you put the seats down. So I'll pop that down, and then here we go. So in the 3, you would have your seats here, and this is about where the opening into the trunk would be. So this does give you a lot more room, and it kind of changes the way that the space feels. The other thing that is kind of notable here is that you can definitely fit a lot more stuff in here. Now, I've moved with the Model 3 and was able to fit a ton of stuff in the front and the trunk and the back, playing a game of Tetris. But as far as ease of stuffing things into the car, this is going to be a lot easier to put a bunch of stuff in. All right, now on to number 5. Now, it could be that I'm just a little bit crazy, but I feel like this seat design on the Y is slightly different than the 3. I'll verify that when I'm home, but this kind of all the different roof design, the hatch, and what I think is a slightly different seat design all combines to a flatter back seat. Now, it's not perfectly flat. You can see here that this part is perfectly flat, and then there's a slight rise on the because of the seats here, but it's not as much as the Model 3 at all. So when I'm at the track, I sleep in the back of the Model 3. I had thought maybe I should get a Y as a track car, start bringing extra tires and wheels and parts, and then it'd be more comfortable to sleep in. And I think that it absolutely would. The additional room here in the back, because of it being a hatch, as well as the seats going slightly more flat, and the more leg room up here, I think would make it for a little bit more comfortable. So if you're, whether it's a track or just thinking on taking your Y out for camping, turning it into a camping rig, I think the Y is a no-brainer in that respect. I'm going to give you one more look kind of how this is. So here's the hatchback on this side, all open. There's a ton of room here, and you open it up. This is just like the Model 3, all of the storage compartment there, and even a little bit of extra up here. So this is accomplished because what we'll call the trunk is a little bit higher than the 3. I noticed that as soon as I opened the rear here. is that this platform is up a little bit higher. But that means it's going to be flatter with the back seats down, and again, a little bit better for a camping rig. So, quick summary on what we covered today here. The 5 top differences from renting this Y for a week. The car is taller off the ground, so it's easier to get into. It has a little bit stiffer suspension than the 3, which I think performs a little bit better off-road, but it's not a huge difference, and it was perfectly mild-mannered for driving it on the street for the last week. Number 3, the back seats being a little bit more roomy. Number 4, hatchback design gives you more headroom and easier to stuff more luggage or bigger things in there. And then number 5 being the back seats are slightly flatter than the 3 when they're all down and easier to camp in. So I'm glad I rented the Y for this week through New England, seeing the trees, and I hope this answered some questions if you were like me and kind of knew that they were really similar cars but wasn't quite sure what the major differences are. I think it goes without saying that other than these 5 things that I picked out, really everything else is totally the same between the 2 cars since they're built on the same platform. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you all soon.